And welcome to the ONS podcast. Today, first of all, I just wanted to say thank you for everyone that's listening and joining in, whether you're listening on just audio or if you're watching us on video on YouTube right now. We took a little hiatus from the ONS podcast during the pandemic, but we are back, and we figured we are going to start off with a banger of an episode. And if you are a longtime follower of the ONS brand, Oak and Stone Clothing Company, you're going to recognize this guy. He's the man lion himself. Hello, Mark Harley. Mark Harley, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me. And I don't know if you use the word banger on purpose, but that's what me and Isaiah always use for our sketches, where he's like, we got another absolute banger for you. That's one of my favorite words, to use for content, the promise of a banger. But, I hope we do. I'm going to promise, actually, we are going to deliver a banger right here, right now. You heard it first within the first minute of the podcast.
Well, thank you again for being on. Mark, over the last few months, we've partnered up together for promoting the brand and promoting Haters Will Say. And I just got to say, you are one of the kindest, best heart, hardworking people that I've worked with since I started this brand. And I just want to just start that off because
I hear a lot.
Well, here's the thing, you have this persona, you have a social media persona, and then people obviously see you on the podcast, but there's always that question in the back of people's mind whenever they see an influencer or a celebrity. They're just like, I wonder if that person's an asshole in real life.
Yeah.
And I can 100% verify that you are not an asshole, and you're actually very, very kind and hardworking and really great to work with.
I appreciate that, because that is something I guess I take for granted. Like I do, I personally value not being an asshole. At this point in my life, especially, I think like maybe when you're younger, you sort of glorify or glamorize being a dick, speaking your mind and being edgy. Although I think you can be both. I think you can, speak your mind and be edgy and still be kind to people. But what I've encountered in the last year or so, since first appearing on The Fighter and the Kid and getting a bigger platform from that, like having like a larger influx of strangers, come to me and sort of have a more critical eye, is I'm like, oh, a lot of people don't get the fact that I'm posting certain things in a tongue-in-cheek way.
Right.
Or that I'm playing into, a character that plays on a perception of me, because of course I don't think that we should just judge people by the way they look, but I know people do project certain things to me. Of course, I don't have an objective perspective on myself. I understand why people might, misinterpret who I am and what I do, but I'm glad that you point that out, because I think it's funny to sort of like do certain things that, if you were taking me literally at face value and weren't looking for sarcasm or irony, you might come to the conclusion that I'm being an asshole or being mean. But in reality, I feel comfortable doing that because I'm like, well, if you know me, that that's the joke, is that I would never do this in public or never say that. Or I'm saying, even the brand of Haters Will Say, it's like, it's tongue in cheek, because I actually don't obsess about I'll talk shit to my haters, but I don't. The joke is funny to me because it's like a victim complex. If you are actually obsessed with your haters, or like when the phrase comes to mind, like, man, haters gonna say this chain ain't real, whatever it is, like the picture in my mind of somebody who actually says that is somebody who's narcissistic and has a victim complex and doesn't want to take responsibility for things. And those are things I'm like, man, I really hope I never become somebody like that, even though it's obviously tempting to blame other people for any sort of shortcomings. But, I do ultimately believe in kindness, believe in personal accountability, and believe in welcoming criticism, if it's legitimate and constructive.
Well, I think that's the difference, right? Is some people are just trying to be assholes on there. It's not like you're going to people's page and posting shitty comments underneath their post.
And that's something it's like, I would never do that. So I know if you're coming to me to do that and tell me that I'm an asshole, well, I think irony might be lost on you in a number of ways. Because that's just not something me or my friends do. And it's always a little bit surprising, because of that, again, the more people you're exposed to, the greater, it's like, well, that slice is just going to, grow proportionally of people who could potentially criticize you, but it's just a behavior that, and I don't know, I'm like, I'm 38 years old, and maybe that's, if I had the internet like this and all, like there was social media, but I don't know. I don't like, it's one of those things where I don't do that to strangers in real life. I don't just go up to people and be like, "You're ugly," or "I don't like your outfit," or
well, considering
considering
the fact that you are 6'4" and tipping the scales at like 250, I don't think very many people are going to be just saying that to your face.
Right. And so when I say to people, for example, like if people talk shit to me online, I go, you wouldn't say that to me in person. And they go, "Oh, is that a threat?" And I go, no. I'm just saying, like, I've never experienced that in person. Like, historically speaking, people just don't tend to be mean to me. And also, I don't tend to be mean to other people to their face in real life, because I just believe that most things, most issues can be handled diplomatically, even if it upsets you.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. I think it really is good. And I enjoy a lot of the tongue-in-cheek, like your responses are very well thought out.
Thank you.
So it's
because I do also, like, even with that, people will message me to tell me, like, they're like, "I'm a fan of yours, but you shouldn't write back to people in this way," or whatever.
Right.
Like, well, I have my justification where it is nice to hear that, like, do other people get this, or am I just like, do I look like a lunatic?
No, I get it. I think it's really good. You call people on your shit and you use their shit, and usually it's a very witty, thought through response.
Yes.
But I enjoy your page, and that's why I contacted you. It's people ask me all the time, like, how do you get connected with guys like you or Shab or the professional baseball players or football players? And I literally just say, I send a message in the DMs on Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, Instagram has opened up this way of communication that wasn't available before, and a lot of times they'll respond. And, and a lot of times they won't, but it's just a numbers game, and you're just throwing it out there.
And that's a personal style. Like, my style so far has been, like, I love communication, and I love, like, I liken it to when I was teaching and tutoring in my 20s. It's like, people have questions, people want to reach out to you. And it reminds me of, like, not to say people who are following me or my fans are kids, but it's like, it showed me how important, like answering somebody's question is. You know what I mean? Like, when you're in a class and, like, a kid asks you a question, or you give them a little attention or whatever, it's like, people do value that. And somebody who and I'm not saying that's you, I'm saying, like, it's pretty special that anybody would want to reach out to you,
Yeah.
And I think people who do have an interest in you, like, they are really grateful that you'd respond, even though I'm a nobody. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, like, if you're treating me in any way like I'm special, it's like, I occupy a very tiny, molecule of the internet, but that it just feels good to interact with people in that positive way, especially when it involves, like, fitness or something like that. And, like, I might be the person to help somebody get back on the path to feeling better. That feels good. I know they're going to remember that and be grateful for it. So it's a win-win. And the only limiting factor now is, like, I've just gotten busier, and I also post a lot of memes. So I have, like, 100 messages a day, like, from people responding to my memes. I'm almost like, it's like, hey, I actually had been meaning to say, email me with these kind of questions.
Right.
So I can get back to everybody. Like, I want to get back to everybody.
Right.
And some people just, like, don't use social media for that. So it's even less of a slice of their time. And if you only have an hour and you have 300 messages or something like that, if you're a bigger celebrity, like, so that's why it's like, sometimes people will, like, message you, and then you see, like, oh, they messaged me a month ago. And this is very rare, but people, like, they message you. It's like, fun and be like that. I thought you were cool. It's like, whoa, dude, I didn't even see that.
Yeah.
But that's another attitude of, like, I never feel entitled to anybody's time. And I don't think you do either. And I think that's the healthy approach, is like, hey, assume the best. Assume they just didn't see it. Assume that they'd want to.
Right.
If you saw them on the street and said something that'd be pleasant to you, but things do get lost in the world of social media.
Yeah, and 100%. And I never, ever take that personally when somebody doesn't respond to a random brand messaging them about, repping the gear, sending them free stuff. Like, I never, ever take that personally. And I always assume the best, and I always assume that they probably get 1,000 of these messages in a day. So it's,
if I'm as small as I am and I'm getting, like, the number of messages, I always think about that. I'm like, what if I had 2 million followers or something like that? Like, you'd for sure being bombarded by people who you have to assume want something from you, even though, yeah, it's been amazing, like to have any sort of like following, and then people like, hey, can we send you free stuff? I'm like, yes. Do that whenever you want.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I kind of have a similar feeling towards even when people, this brand is very much a part of who I am. It's my identity. I put my heart and soul into this project, and I wholeheartedly believe that it will be a success. And it's super humbling. Like every single time somebody decides to make a purchase of our clothing, it's just like that feeling has not been lost.
Yeah, that's great, because and I think about that too. Like, I hope these basic things don't go away where, like, I travel with Brendan to some of his tour dates, and people will come up to me afterwards and ask for a picture, like ask as if like I would say no or something. That's always like a humbling. I'm like,
right.
They're like, do you mind if I'm like, yes, please. Like, take more pictures of me. Right. Take it whatever you want. But like, or somebody going like, hey, I'm a fan of your podcast. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You listen to me? Yeah. Because I don't expect my friends and family to actually.
Yeah.
Like some of my friends are like, oh, I got behind on your podcast. I'm like, what? Like, why would you ever, like, don't even listen to it? You know what I mean? Like you hear me enough.
Right.
It's not for you. But when a stranger, goes, oh, this is how I've gotten to know you in this really intimate way, by listening, to you talk for an hour, that is something that still hits me really hard. And I imagine it's that same feeling as going like, man, of all the clothes out there, you chose to buy a shirt from me. That feels special. And I think it's important to like just be grateful, like gratitude, that word gets thrown out a lot, but it's those things where it's like, be grateful for the people who out of everything, chose to put time, energy, money, into what you're doing.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I wholeheartedly try to keep that gratitude mindset going. And it's just something that's just ingrained into me now. I had to really work at it. But it's something that I love doing, and people, I don't think people know, like I think people think Oak and Stone is a much bigger brand than it actually is. Like this is me, this is my stuff. So like when I'm a guy on the side of the road with a cart selling, my stuff, right? This is not some big corporation or anything like that. Like this is me just trying to get the brand out there and push a product that I wholeheartedly believe in.
People find that out. Like my client Paul, said he ordered a shirt and got the wrong size, and like had to message you back, and like he got on the phone with you, right?
Yeah.
And he was like so impressed with that, but that's another thing that like, that I think goes a long way, because then that person wants to pass it on. Like I've worked with companies before, or like anytime you get really good customer service that you feel like this person, like it's not a form email or whatever,
right? They
like looked my thing up and a human wrote it. That really is memorable. And I think goes a long way in like recommending. I'm thinking of like the companies that I've bought stuff from, like a peptide company, that I buy stuff from. It's like, oh, like I've recommended it to all these people. Why? Because like a couple times when I had issues, they emailed me and like felt like, oh, that's a guy looking out for me.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is his company. It's not some huge corporation. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but like, the opposite experience is pretty shitty. Like when you're trying to like, I remember trying to get a hold of an airline because I messed something up with a flight, and like during the pandemic, it was like try to get a hold of a Delta representative. It was just impossible.
It's not gonna happen.
So, when you or even just like calling the bank or whatever, like it's just we just don't have many of those like intimate interactions with businesses these days.
Sure. No, I get it. So I wanted to ask you, so what was your inspiration for starting Haters Will Say?
Good question, because, I'm not sure I've told this publicly, at least, not that I can think of, but Brendan really encouraged me to do it. I'll say that. And I would first and foremost credit him for like giving me the impetus and the resources to get into the specifics of what a podcast hosted by me would be, I'd thought about it before, like, what would I do as far, like, oh, that looks like something I could do. I could make it about this. I could make it about that. What would I do if I were to come up with a podcast and have it be solo or interviews or what, like, I'd had ideas about it before, but like, it felt like there were so many steps. Like at the time when he said, oh, have you ever thought about doing a podcast? I'm like, I knew if I left to my own devices, it'd be a year away.
Right.
I'd be like, all right, well, first I got to figure out how to do sound equipment and order everything, and like just doing it yourself, which would have its own satisfaction. But sometimes, you realize it's like, man, with other things that I have going on, I just know this is going to be something that is going to cost me. Like, I have to educate myself. I have to invest money in it. I have to like accept the fact that maybe nobody will watch it, whatever. So, and then I don't have any guidance either. So I would credit him just like that was part of it. And I said, yes, I have. And then entered into like kind of, having some specifics hammered out from Brendan and his team, which is always valuable to like just even like have the pressure put on you, like, hey, how's that outline coming, or what's the like I set up this meeting, you'd be there for. I'm like, oh fuck yeah, okay, yeah. Then you're scrambling to figure it out, but like I'm really grateful for that, because it's always those times where it's like, and then you just get to your first shitty episode quicker, like you get it out of the way quicker versus if I was doing my first episode now, I just wouldn't. But of course, then you regret, like, shit, I should have started this, in 2005 when somebody told me about their golf podcast, or like, and this literally happened, this is a dad of a friend of mine was like, you should start a podcast. This is in 2005. He's like, I have the #1 golf podcast right now. I'm like, what the fuck is a podcast?
Right.
I should have listened to him. Now, he was like a multimedia guy, a multimedia entrepreneur anyway, and had some like interesting like inventions, but very similar personality type to me. And like, I just, you can't know what you don't know. But yes, at the time, and I'm sure he's crushing it now. If he was like doing all the things he did, he'd go to like different golf courses and like do like play the course and then give you tips on it and provide like a video of it. It was like very smart. But I'm self-conscious of, with all the experts and the gurus and the scientists and the people who are just like really accomplished in the world of fitness and athletics, a big part of me is always like, well, who the fuck wants to listen to me? Like, what do I have to bring to the table? But during the pandemic, I noticed an influx of people asking me for advice on, for example, how to do home workouts or how to get started again when they let themselves slack off and they become sedentary, as many people did. And, even I did for a couple of weeks before I was like, I can see where this is going. So if I don't figure out a route to run right now, I'm going to gain 50 pounds in the next 12 months. And so I figured out the park that I'd go to do like dips and bodyweight stuff and a hill run. But there was a lot of people in that boat. And I recalibrated, my sense of what people would expect from me, because I just started to see like, oh, most people just are looking for something much more basic than I assumed, because you kind of, you get desensitized to your own level of expertise. So it's like, if you were trying to help somebody else start a clothing company and they knew nothing, maybe you'd jump into like, all right, so obviously you have this, and I'm like, no, I don't know what those terms mean.
Right.
And so I goes, oh, okay, I can start, give people this entry level stuff and present it in a slightly different way. Because ultimately, like when I look around, if you're looking at it in an entrepreneurial or business sense, you can look around and go like, okay, what's missing? Now, a lot of people have maybe tried to do skits or be funny in the world of fitness, but it's mostly occupied by relatively serious people. Kind of, when you were like, people have this stereotype of meatheads in bodybuilding, but a lot of the people are kind of nerdy, especially like power lifters and bodybuilders too. But like the people doing YouTubes who are like science-based, evidence-based channels, I like that kind of content, like dry and nerdy, but it's like, it's a certain personality type that's going to lean a little bit more, on the Asperger side of things, which is fine. But I'm like, oh, maybe I could spruce this up a little bit and add a little fun to it. And so that's ultimately what I'm trying to do, is like, have fun, drop some information, and and also it can be fun to call out the bullshit of like, there is a lot of charlatans and snake oil salesman in the world of fitness because it's taking advantage of people's naivete, you know?
Okay. So like, in what way would you say that they're, well, first of all, I want to backpedal just a little bit. I think the difference is for those people that don't know this about you, you are an actor, you know, and so you're used to entertaining people and putting on like a specific like persona. So like when people are watching you on your Instagram or on your podcasts, is that Mark Harley? Or is that a persona? Is that hella Mark Harley, you know?
That's a really good question. Because I would say, if you were to really talk to me, and maybe I'm speaking more like this now, I think the mismatch in how people see me and how I maybe will act in, if I'm doing an Oak and Stone ad or something like that, unless I'm consciously altering that, I tend to be nerdier too. You know, like I tend to like value. So I know when I'm also talking to a nerd, because I'm like, oh, you're more likely to speak in a monotone way or use like pause to find the right vernacular.
Right.
And you're emphasizing sort of precision and accuracy and nuance over charisma. It is important to me to like know how to be charismatic and study charismatic people. And that's what I use for acting and to create characters, but it's not necessarily as natural for me. Like, you know, like Sammy the Bull was in The Fighter and the Kid yesterday. And it's like, that's just such a naturally like, you know, you want to talk like him when you're around him.
Right.
You know, like you're just like all of a sudden you're like, yeah, fucking Sammy the Bull.
He is a caricature. He's a caricature of a mafia guy. You know, it's just like he's embodies the essence of it.
Yeah, and so in some ways, I guess when I'm, you know, that's a really great question that you asked, because like when I think about the characters that I play, they often are like, I'd say, more dumb, more narcissistic, more arrogant than I am in real life, but I'm playing up, like, I just know that, no, I'd like to, early on, I felt like, well, I can play anything, and I can do characters and impressions, and like, I got my first kind of like the big break that I got at being on 50 Central came from being like, making it through several rounds of auditions, you know, to test for network for the In Living Color reboot, because I could do like an Eminem and a Yellow Wolf and a Mike Posner and a Matt Damon and a Mark Wahlberg and Brad Pitt impressions, to the degree that it was needed. I'm not saying I'm a master impressionist, but like,
I'm gonna have to see one of those.
Utility player,
I feel like I have to see one. Like, what's your best? Like, if you could choose one, somebody's like, all right, give me an impression.
Mark Wahlberg's kind of easy because you can kind of be like, you know, I heard you didn't like I Heart Huckabees. You thought my acting was stiff and unbelievable, huh? I got something stiff and unbelievable for you. It's my dick, you little bitch. You know,
dude, that was so like, good. That was awesome.
He's always like vaguely menacing, even if he's nice. You know,
right?
It's like, hey, Ricardo, heard you got a great clothing line. I'd love to see some of those T-shirts. Would you mind sending them to me? Make sure you use FedEx Express, because I get real upset if my packages are late.
Dude, I just like instantly got more intimidated by you.
So again, like, I'm just setting that up because I used to think that was like, and I think a lot of actors think this, they're like, I'm going to be cast for my versatility and my talent at playing like all these different things. But it's like, unless you're actually on a show like that, like SNL or something like that, which, you know, like I personally, like, I know I could do enough variety that would be fun to do that. But like, in reality, you're probably going to be cast for one of a very limited number of things.
Right.
And if you want to be a muscular man with long hair, you know, like, you're going to, and that's fine. It's like, okay, you're going to be a biker. You're going to be this until you're much bigger. But it's like at this, you know, it's like my auditions are like, we need a barbarian. We need a fucking douchebag. We need a guy, you know, like,
right.
And that's fine, because you do ultimately want to be typecast, because like, you just want to be cast. And so when I do stuff on my social media content, like even when I'm doing, I've been having fun making these little, like, a lot of people have been asking me videos, or like a lot of people have been asking me about lifting, or, you know, and it's like, that's my joke on influencers, because influencers always post like, a lot of people asking me what I'm eating for breakfast. It's like, and I'm always like, oh my gosh, it's such a even if it's true, it's very self-aggrandizing. Like, I'd almost rather you just come out and say, like, hey, if you're curious, here's what I have for breakfast every morning, rather than like, oh my God, so many people have been asking me that it's impossible for me to even keep up with all the DMs that I'm getting about this oatmeal that I made. You know, you know what I mean? Like, and people will do like who aren't even. It's like you have 200 followers. Like, don't tell me a lot of people have been asking you this. Like, you know, if 2 people asked you that, I'd be shocked. But I like making videos like that where it's like an arrogant guy, because it's fun for like, it's like, but I know when I act more like an arrogant doofus, even I'm paying attention to myself more. like, you know, like everybody wants that. And it's kind of like, you know, you think about a guy like Donald Trump or something like that. It's like, love him or hate him. Like, he's very easy to pay attention to because his confidence is so, you know, magnetic.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
and so I love playing characters like that, where it's like just somebody who's overconfident, and people like that for me too. Like, they like seeing me as somebody who's sort of like overconfident and lacks self-awareness. It's easy for them to laugh at me doing that. And even like when I do the Oak and Stone ads that, you know, we kind of like, hey man, here's kind of what I was thinking and you liked it, so I'm happy that it worked out. But it's like, that's a version of that character where it's just like supreme confidence. And it works for ads because it's like, you want somebody with supreme confidence in the thing that they're talking about, you know.
100%.
And people also respond to it too. But it's like, I like the, you know, what is the area of overlap where it's like, I'm not saying anything that's not true. I'm just like upping this, like, you know, level of like confidence and arrogance in the product that people can kind of see as tongue in cheek, and it ends up being fun. But, you know, it's just, yes, that's representative of a character that I like to play that is not me. But, you know, you get to be like, man, I wish I was more like that. I think it would solve certain problems, you know?
Well, I think what the beauty is, like, I very much like the brand has been very much steered towards like a very serious, very stoic kind of like manly, like aesthetic. And what you've brought to the table that no other influencer that we worked with has brought is the comedic relief. And I mean, like, I will get DMs every time you post a video of like, Ricardo, who is this guy? And I was like, you know, it's just like one of those things that
or what is that?
No, definitely not. I think there's you've got this like
that is okay.
You've got this X factor about you, and I've really noticed this as of recently on The Fighter and the Kid. Every single guest that they have on says something about you. They like Tim Kennedy couldn't take his eyes off of you.
Right? Right. And I really, it's actually been really cool this past year to see, especially guys like that, where it's like, oh, like I actually do connect. Like, you can think whatever you want about me, and certain people are going to be repelled. And I've encountered this recently, and it's a great thing to like not take it personally when people don't like you or they say mean things about you online. Like, not even to your, because like it's a different category of like, if you're coming to my page talk shit, you're probably a guy. You're probably like in your 20s, like, you know, I've narrowed it down. I'm like, I know who the guy is that like is upset by me and thinks they need to say something to me, and I don't take that personally. But then there's also another category of people who like will like gossip about you. You know, I'll see videos. I'm like, oh, this person like made a video about my podcast. Like, that's just like not even necessarily for me to see, but it's like, you know, it might be a girl who's like defines herself almost in opposition to what she thinks I am.
Right.
And I feel fortunate that I can see that and go like, oh, but that's okay. Like, you see yourself as something that's totally different than me. And like, I also went to college with a lot of people like that. Like, I went to a small private liberal arts school, Pomona College. And like, I'm used to being around like feminists or people who look at me and they're just like, ew, like football. I'm like, even like, hey, we can have a conversation and I'd be totally fine with it.
Right.
And I'm a good listener and I'd love to hear your ideas on things. And, you know, and even at a time when like I was totally open-minded to anything, like I didn't know what I believed, but I noticed it like, oh, right. Like, not everybody likes a big football player, you know, and some people think that's the worst thing in the world.
Right.
And so that, I'm glad I was okay with that, because now it makes me appreciate extra, like when you meet a military guy and he's like, oh, that's like cool that you work out and you're buff. And what about you? Like, because they're like, oh, right. Cause they know like that you don't like, even if you take anabolics, like you don't just end up being muscular because of that. Like there's, you know, you instantly bond over the fact that like, hey, I can see you enjoy training, you know, and you enjoy athletics. And meeting a guy like Tim Kennedy, who I'm so impressed with, and, you know, who has so many accomplishments under his belt, and and is just around like, the biggest savages in the world. And for him to like even throw attention my way, it's very validating and really cool. But I'm like, oh, right. Yeah. Because that's like, he's a guy's guy. And I like clicking and kind of like horse playing around. It's like he's wrestling Cal and he's biting me on the chest. It's like, it's such a fun time. And I realized I missed that kind of like fraternization, and having like guys where it's like, yeah, it's okay, man. We're in the studio. We can fuck around a little bit and wrestle. And as long as nobody knocks the cameras over, which I've almost done many times, but like, it's like, it's all good. And that's a great contrast to certain environments where I've been in where, and I'm not saying this like as an anti-woman thing, but like in teaching a lot of time, I worked at like a tutoring facility, one year where like, I love working with kids, but it's like, if you're, if the staff is like 12 people and you're the only dude, like you're going to have a lot of eyeballs on you kind of being like, oh, he's doing like, you're too big, you're eating too much, you're fucking too loud. Like everything's, you could be in an environment where like everything I do as a natural instinct is wrong to somebody.
Right. Well, and I just fine. I instantly envisioned Kindergarten Cop. Like when you said that, like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Kindergarten Cop, like that was you in real life.
I've substitute taught kindergarten and realized I'm never coming back here because it is the hardest grade to do because they require like minute to minute like supervision. And when their schedule's off, they know it. And they're like, oh, we're supposed to sing the song now. And like this guy's crawling off the carpet. You're like, no. Like it was so chaotic versus, a senior in high school is like, oh, sub, cool. We're watching a DVD. Great. I'm going to go to sleep. And we're like, it's that handshake of like, let's make this easy on each other. Kindergartners are like, you're not my teacher,
Stranger danger.
Yeah, exactly. And they just like, they have their little like routine that they need to follow exactly. And it's like shocking. Like I saw Kindergarten Cop back in the day, but I like when I had that day, I'm like, oh my God, it's completely accurate. Yeah. That's how it ends up when you're not a kindergarten teacher.
Well, I wanted to... This opportunity for you being a part of Thick Boy and Fighter and the Kid and King and the Sting in the Wing.
Yeah.
How did you get into that role? Like what brought you into that circle? Into that
I would
arena?
say directly because of Chappelle Lacey, who my friend Todd Dorm introduced me to. Like Todd's a great guy. You would love him. He, he's so generous that like when I was having a car issue, he's like, oh, you can have my car for the month. Like if you just pay the insurance off on it. I'm like, dude, thank you so much. That literally saves me thousands of dollars of like renting a car. And Chappelle Lacey needed it one night. So like we arranged like, okay, I'm going to go to Chappelle's house, pick him up. He's going to come to my house. He'll take the car, come back. We arranged it all. And, just instantly clicked with Chappelle over like music and stuff like that on the 20-minute drive that we had together. And then he was like, man, I want to start working out with you. And a lot of people will say that. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
You want to start working on it? Great. Because it ultimately, it's like, look, unless you want me to train, it's like, I work out on my own, that's the most efficient thing. I actually kind of like it as a meditative time.
Sure.
And it's like one of the only areas, like maybe this, like when you're running a business, or like, you have complete control over that time and you can do whatever you want. And I push myself hard. I don't need anybody there to push me. So usually people are accompanying me so that I can push them harder or whatever. But it's like, and I've had experiences before where like, I'm trying to help somebody out and they want to start working out. Maybe it's like, man, you're fucking, like every time you come, you're running late and you're like, I'll tell you to do something and you say no, and that's a deal breaker. Or I'm like, oh, you got one more rep. And they're just like, no. I'm like, what? Because I grew up working with my little brother and he had a, balls to the wall attitude as well. So like, I just have a high standard of like, if we're working out together and you could be in charge, but we've decided I am. And like, I'm not a control freak or anything, but it's like, we're doing the workout that I say we are. And if I say like, you have an extra rep, it's because like, if I was doing that set right now, I would do that extra rep or whatever. So I've actually cut people off before where it's like, dude, you are like, we can't work out anymore. I tried, but like,
I connect with that really well because, I definitely, I run a business. I have 2 little girls at home and married, and I am very much an introvert. I require a lot of alone time, like just a lot of downtime. And that's why I get up at, 5:30 in the morning to go to the gym. And I love to just throw my headphones in, get in there. I work out usually by myself.
That might be your only time all day if you have a family and a business.
100%. So it's just, it's that, like what you said, that uninterrupted time to where I can do whatever the hell I want. And I'm going to work out whatever I want, and I'm going to push myself as hard as I can. I think it is good to have a partner sometimes because they will help you like get that one extra rep or whatever, but you got to be able to push yourself. You got to be able to have your own accountability to get your ass to the gym every morning. And
at some point, you can't like, so I see a lot of like gym bro memes when you workout partners, and it's like, now I get it, because when I was like 16, I had that, and I'm fortunate, like I had some older guys kind of show me like, this is how, let's do a 3-hour leg workout or whatever. It's too much, but at least like, oh, this is what it's like to throw up from a leg day.
Right.
But you do ultimately, I think everybody should master, how to work out and motivate themselves on their own, even though, yes, sometimes it's like, I've definitely done some workouts this year where it's like, if it wasn't for the workout partner, I would have put it off, but like, that's just the showing up part.
Right.
But
back to Chappelle.
Chappelle started like, I'm like, all right, I'm working out, tomorrow at noon at fucking 24-hour fitness in Hollywood. And he would show up, and he would like, he didn't have a car at the time. So he was Ubering to like work out with me every day.
He wanted it.
Show up on time and would like not question anything. It would just like, cause he's all business. He knows that world of like competitive athletics, because of his cheerleading background, which is like, cheerleading, haha, but it's like, oh no, it's like a serious competitive gymnastics. So it's all business. And you obviously have to have this understanding of like, just how serious it is. And not that like, it's probably the only place in life where I don't joke around is in the gym, to be quite honest. Like, it's just, I don't like, because it's just, it's a waste of time. If we're sitting there social, and I hate when people come, like, I have certain people come up to me, it's like, dude, like, I'm in between a set and you're trying to have a 20-minute conversation with me. Like, no, like, say
I'm losing my
hi.
pump. Yeah.
You're throwing everything off, and like, so it's the one place where I'm totally serious. And Chappelle's also an introvert. So it's like, he doesn't, he wasn't coming there to socialize. Like, he was just with the program. He would do it every day. And I was like, yes, this is the kind of person who I like, where it's like, he's just down with whatever the program was. No complaining, always pushing himself as hard as he could. And then we go talk afterwards. But it's like, he knew, I was like, oh, right, you get it. Yeah. This is the mission. This is what we're actually trying to accomplish, is a hard workout. We don't need to talk or like fucking bullshit around. And like, you want to actually be, if you're with a workout partner, you kind of want to be at a pace where there's not really a lot. It's like, you go, I go, you go, I go.
Right.
That's kind of ideal for me, at least. And then he would so we started to work out, and he was having fun with it and liked the style of it, because I was also at the time doing more like circuit training. So it was like, oh, when people see the kind of workouts that I have invented, not that it's reinventing the wheel, but it's like a CrossFit set. If I have a half an hour, it's like in a busy gym, like I know I have like 15 different workouts from like, you need 2 pairs of dumbbells for this. It has to be like, this is has to be heavy enough for you to shoulder press, but good enough that you can Romanian deadlift with it,
Right.
So I developed my own little like efficiency system for full body workouts that he really liked. And he started talking me up to Brendan, like, oh, you got to, check out Hello Mark Harley, this and that. And Brendan was like, oh yeah, okay, it's some buff guy that you fucking work out.
Right.
But also it's like, if you just brought up my Instagram with no context, it's like, what would you think? Like, because I also like to post stuff where it's like, unless you're reading the caption on my shirtless pic, you would just think that, and I honestly don't even like posting. I'm not driven to work out really because of I like to be like, all right, I should post like a shirtless pic every like 5th post. Like I have like this little math equation of like sketch, add, shirtless pic, This would make it easier for myself, but I'm not somebody who like, I don't actually need attention and validation. There was a point in my life where I'm like, aren't I buff? Like, as I'm sure
tell me I'm buff, please.
Yeah. But I do think that's sort of early on.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
But if you're 30, when you start working out, maybe you have to go through that phase. I don't know. But like, I just remember like, it's just like getting validation that my body's nice is so unimportant to me these days, because it comes from me. I'm like, I know how the fuck I look.
Right.
Like,
well, you always like add a little bit of like humor within like even just those like pics, right?
Right. I try to, because it's like, it's signaling you. It's like, dude, this is not like, I'm not going to put some motivational quote here. It's like, if a picture of me motivates you, that's great.
Yeah.
But I'll talk to you in the DMs and we can actually talk nuts and bolts of like programming and how to fucking get out of the depressive funk that you're in or whatever, if you want to be motivated. But me, putting a Bible quote under my shirtless pic or something, or whatever these girls do, it's like, and guys do it too, but it's like a lot, girls are kind of the most guilty of like,
God first.
Shameless ass pic. Yeah. And then it's just like, they threw me to the lion's den and I became the alpha or something.
Yeah, there's a shtick. You have that character of so many different IG models, and like you can almost like pinpoint it to like the specific caricature, right?
Yeah, right. And that's, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you take it literally, like, but again, you could still be like, oh, well, he's saying he's joking about, dude, he's still posting a shirtless pic. It's like, yeah, but I also like.
You took that shirtless picture in the bathroom where a guy's pissing in the background. So obviously you don't take yourself too seriously.
Right. Yeah. No, that's the thing. It's like, even like scheduling a photo, it's like, I feel if there's like a photographer in the gym, like at Zoo sometimes there is, and they'll take a picture, but like, I even like setting up a photo shoot to be like, I'm going to be here and I'm going to be shirtless. I'm like, oh my God, I can't even like bring myself to do that, because I'm too self-conscious about it. But I should, it's just, I feel like I have to make it funny. Like last year I did a funny one with this photographer, Megan McCara, like, do you want to take pictures of me? And I'm like looking around, I'm like, what can we do? Oh, there's a trash can. So we're like,
yeah,
like, I love stuff like that. But, so Chappelle kept like relentlessly pushing me, and then like I think Brendan eventually was like, oh yeah, maybe he consulted with me on a like making a diet for him, and then March of last year, Chappelle was like, oh, Brendan wants to meet up with you, like to go work out at Zoo, because we just started working out there. I'm like, oh, that's dope, man. Of course we'll come. And then I show up and we like it was fun. I was like, hey, what's up, man? I'm Mark. And like, he was cool. And we did a leg workout, and it was fun because we were just like, like, hey, what would you have in mind? Like, blah, blah. I wasn't like, all right, guys, here's what we're doing. Cause that's not really, unless you like pay me to do that.
Right.
Like, I want to be a drill sergeant.
Right.
This should be somewhat enjoyable, even if I am directly training you. But that was just kind of like, to me, that was like guys meeting up to work out. So you're always like, well, what, what's sore, what's not, blah, blah, blah. I find out afterwards, like months later, he was like, I didn't tell Brendan you were coming, right?
So no shit. Are you kidding me?
Set it up like a blind date, like, oh, and here's Mark, But it worked out well because we actually got along, and then we kept working out together. And, I gave him some of my creative workouts, and we do some more like, some days we do like a fun circuit, so it'd be fun, an exhausting circuit.
Right.
Then we kind of got more into like, some heavy lifting. And I think that's what, Brendan, I think a lot of guys are like, man, like, and this is, I've had periods of time where like, I didn't lift weights at all. And there was a period of time in my 20s when I'm like, cause I was like 250 in college to play football, and then like in my mid 20s, I'm like, I don't want to be seen like that anymore. I don't want people to assume that I'm an idiot, whatever. Now I love that. Cause it's like, that's what humor is, and like the contrast between your expectations and reality. But there was a time when I'm like, I don't want to be stereotyped at all. So I'm not going to lift, and I'm just going to run every day, and I'm going to trim down. So I got down to like under 200 pounds, which I look normal. You know what I mean? It's like, I just look like a normal looking guy at 200 pounds. But like, you're not getting attention for your body. Nobody's going up to you like, oh man, you're muscular. Like, so that's another cool thing. Is like, I'm kind of a walking advertisement for fitness almost, because, people come up to me and like, they have questions, and I love interacting with people like that. But, I'm just saying that because like, ultimately I came to terms with like, I'm a meathead. I like lifting heavy weights.
Right.
And that's kind of like witnessing, like, I think Brendan had done this sort of a similar thing where he's like, I don't want to lift weights anymore. Like, I'm a comic. I don't want to be seen like this and that. And because other people will tell you, even like, Rogan has told him like, you want to cover up your arms and don't show your tattoos or your muscles or whatever, because it's a distraction. And it's like, there is some truth to that. But at the same time, I think like, the world is evolving to accept the fact that like, yes, intelligent, funny people can be muscular.
Right.
There may not be many of them. And there are many bodybuilders like trying to do comedic skits. And it's like, you just don't have the skill set to do that. But, they're not mutually exclusive things. It just requires self-awareness. It requires self-awareness of like, what do people think is funny about you? And a lot of buff guys don't know that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Right.
trying to be funny in the same way that it's like a skinny guy is funny. And like, even when Brian Callen's like, oh, I want to get bigger. I'm like, it's going to throw off all your physical comedy. Like if you gain 10 pounds of muscle,
Right.
you're going to look different and it's going to change your act because it changes people's perception of you. So I would warn you against doing that,
Right,
if you're thinking about getting on TRT or something. But like, yeah, me and Brendan Chappelle just started working out together, and I guess the rest is history because, it just became a fun, healthy routine. And I think something that we were all missing. And, fortunately, Bradley kept the Zoo Culture gym open because it was the only like place you could go and not have to wear a mask, which it fucking really kills the mood of a workout. When
Sure.
you like do a set of fucking, 20 reps on a deadlift and like have a mask on your face you're trying to breathe into as you're about to collapse. Like,
Right.
Who the fuck wants to do that? And even though nobody really followed it, it's like there's somebody at the gym whose job it is to go around like, could you put your mask up?
Oh,
And so that was like the one place in Los Angeles where you could actually go and like, film content and not have a mask on. And so that was a real, I say lifesaver, although in some ways it is because, some people's livelihoods was saved by, Zoo Culture Gym staying open because they have to shoot content.
Sure. Sure.
Uh,
Yeah. And I know how hard it is to develop like the idea for like a show.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's hard enough to develop a podcast where you bring on different guests. It is a whole other animal to do like a monologue podcast like you do. Like how long does it take you to like prep? Like how much work are you putting in? Because it's about an hour. That's a long time to be just like riffing and talking. And I know you talk back and forth with your producer a little bit, but like
right. But I could yes, that's a good question because I initially I was doing it just like a monologue of the camera as if other people weren't in there. And then I'm like, oh, this is a fun like valve to, because I was initially shooting it in discrete segments. I'd be like, I'd finish one. I'm like, all right, let me look at my notes real quick for the next one.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But then I'm like, well, I could do this all in one take, but it'd help if I could like riff off of Kate because that'll fill any dead moments. Or I'm like, but yes, I mean, I come in and I just do the whole thing in one take. So, I always look at it this way, probably with anything. It's like, like write a paper in Spanish. It's like, well, the first one you write, you're going to be looking things up and checking the grammar and all these different things. And it might take you 10 hours. And then, to have this like sort of, fifth grade level piece of writing in Spanish.
Right.
And then a year later, you could probably do it in real time. You know what I mean? And what I realized is going from the initial concept of I want to do a solo podcast that's like loosely based on fitness, but could be anything. It's like, here's the universe of possibilities. And then like, it helps me a lot when somebody's like, hey, we're going to have a meeting next week. I'm like, all right, start to shrink this down.
Right.
My tendency for my personality type is to be like, oh, we could,
Right.
And I need somebody else going, yeah, but we should do this, or we can do this, and we can't do that.
Right.
And sometimes that has to be me, but I'm going to put off those decisions until the last minute. It's like I'm going to think of all the possibilities of, the most magical show it could be, and really, for my podcast, I wanted to I've got it down now, so I basically can spend a couple hours prepping in the outlining and the review, and just collecting. And even that process, if I'm collecting funny videos, like now instead of waiting until the day before, it's like I collect, and then I have it ready to go, so it's all about making your process more efficient.
Right.
Now, I'm also going to be working on a more elaborate podcast where it is maybe more in the vein of like a John Oliver, like Last Week Tonight, or like an HBO, like real time kind of thing where it's like, at least part of it's written, it's higher production, so that's like, that'll be a whole new process.
Right,
it's like a big investment on the first few episodes to figure out what the process is and figure out what the target is, because it's like, like you look at a stand-up comedian, even somebody like Louis C.K., to do a like an hour of high quality stand-up comedy, obviously, like he takes a year to do that, and people are like, oh my God, like every year you do a new hour of stand-up comedy, but it's like, well, that's, the target is like every sentence is mind-blowingly funny.
Right, exactly. Like for an hour.
But if the bar is like every sentence should roughly make sense and be mildly entertaining, you know, like, you know, like then you could probably do that every week. And it's been interesting though, because like I don't want to make it too complex. And I look at people who have, like, even The Fighter and the Kid, it's like, this has been going on for 10 years.
10 years. Yeah.
You got to figure out what you can sustain.
Right.
You know? And so part of that, is you got to be reliant on, like, hey, current events, like what happened this week. You can't, I know I, for myself, have a tendency to like put a hat on a hat. You know, you have a good idea and you're like, oh, it's not good enough. I need to make it more complicated, more absurd, more funny, whatever. And it's like, remember, you want to do this every single week. You don't want to, you know, it shouldn't be 40 hours of prep. But again, like I said, I'm working on something else that would be a little bit more prep. But like, even then, it's like I have somebody who's, you know, maybe willing to put in money that would go to, like, have a researcher, you know?
Gotcha.
Because that's what, like, as you grow up the ranks, really, it's not about like, oh my God, like, you know, Conan O'Brien. Now, he's of course a brilliant comedic mind, but it's like these shows aren't possible without an enormous staff, including lots of writers, you know, who are also, you know, high caliber comedic minds, working essentially around the clock, you know, just to get that 3-minute monologue. You have a team of people, you know, writing a joke, and, you know, just throwing darts at the wall to get the funniest of the funny. And, you know, but I'm happy with where it is now, but I'm always saying, and I'm even thinking of, I would like to start a podcast with Isaiah that's sort of more in the vein of like a King and the Sting, where it's like, you know, segments, because it's like with podcasts, you can do whatever you want, you know? And so I was thinking of like, okay, looking at Brendan, he's a huge inspiration for like even the King and the Sting itself, and certain other things that he does, where it's like the Food Truck Diaries or whatever. It's taking what works, which is interviews with people or a 2-person podcast, and like, and adding something else, like making it a little bit closer to a produced TV show, but still something that you can do on a limited budget. But it's more than that, you know, and you add a cool set, and it's a really interesting world, isn't it? Because it's like, it's taking like, okay, people can digest content in this general length, even if it's not on TV, but it's sort of on TV if it's on YouTube. So how can we make it a little bit more, but not, you know, you're not expecting like a fucking, you know, Yellowstone level production quality, but if you add a cool set, that bumps it up a lot. I think that
as somebody that's a listener of you guys, what I think is the most important is that people build a connection to you. And, you know, it has to be a weird feeling to have so many people know who you are and you don't know who they are. Right. So you as a listener will start to learn all the ins and outs of this person's life. You know who their wife is, you know who their kids are, you know what they like, you know what their interests are. And so there's definitely like this trust that builds as you continue to listen to these people, and you've decided like, this is going to be somebody that I am going to listen to. I am entertained by them. You know, for me, it's like, I listen to Rogan. I trust Rogan. Like he has proven himself to me to be a trustworthy person, and I get a lot of value out of his podcast, and I get a lot of entertainment out of his podcast. And that's the same thing with Fighter and the Kid. That's the same thing with Haters Will Say. Like, I love your podcast because it's informative, yes, but there's also entertainment, you know, and that's okay to have both. Like, you can't lean into, because I always have to balance, like, okay, I have, you know, Tim Ferriss, Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman, Andrew Huberman, all those podcasts that I listen to that are strictly, for the most part, down to business, right? I'm just trying to grow and learn as much as I possibly can. But Fighter and the Kid, Haters Will Say, King and the Sting, those are like my entertainment. Andrew Schultz, like, those are my entertainment podcasts. Not to say like I don't get stuff out of it. Like, I've learned more about steroids from you than anybody else. I'm just kidding. But
no, it's probably true. And I think a lot of people, like, it's people reach out to me before that specifically. I'm like, oh, it's great, because it just happens to be something that I've been kind of ahead of the curve for. You know, there's many experts who know more, but like, I just been at it for a long time. But that's also like, when you say, you know, the King Sting in front of the Kid, it's like, that's deliberate. And that's something that Brendan is like, been really great about reminding me of. It's like, okay, but what's entertaining about this? You know, don't make it boring. Like, you know, like, just reminding me that it's like, people tune in. Remember, at the end of the day, people are coming for this, and they don't give a fuck about that you think they do. You know, when you're in your head overthinking something. And so I think he's really good about being consistent and like kind of being in touch with like, all right, people are entertained by this. instead of fucking reinventing the wheel every week, let's hit that target 1,000 times.
Right.
And obviously it's worked out really well for him, you know, because again, like as I've started to discover like the kind of, you know, money that you can make when you make a really good podcast, like the Fighting the Kid and Killing Sting, it's like, yeah, man, it's like you're rewarded for that,
sure.
You know, by just being, but he's really hammers like, you know, if we have to miss an episode or something like that, it's like, you know, he's still 10 years in, you know, it eats him up that he has to not drop an episode when he said he was going to, because like, man, we're delivering these episodes to people who are like, they might be driving a truck across the country and it's like, they're expecting that episode at 5 p.m. And like, when they don't get it, man, it's a big letdown, and they might, you know, we might lose them as a fan because there is a trust there. You know, I can trust you as a listener, and you can trust me to drop this content that helps you get through the day at this point in time. And that's, I'm not saying that's right. I mean, getting through the day without you, you know, but sometimes you get those messages and it is really great. So it's interesting that you brought up those specific examples, because I feel like it's almost like the bro template or something like that, like, you know, the thinking bros. But like, because I love Lex Friedman, I love Joe Rogan, all these, you know, people will criticize, like, you know, obviously Joe Rogan has come under a lot of scrutiny as of late, but like, it's been the same for a number of years. If you're in that world, like, you know, it's almost like they've become this dividing line, because it's like, I need to know, like, you can have whatever opinion you want on him, but like, don't have a misinformed opinion of Joe Rogan. Don't come at me and tell me he's a fucking, you know, alt-right closet Nazi or something like that, because you heard it, you know, from your friend. It's like, oh, really? Yeah, like, you know, and he's misunderstood because you tune in, I think, like I do, because he seems like a conduit for me in that conversation, right? He's smart, but it's not like you're listening to somebody who's using such, you know, esoteric vocabulary that you can't understand what he's saying. He seems like a smart, normal guy who's having questions with these experts that kind of takes the conversation where you might take it. So you're like, I'm getting out like what I would get if I got to be in a room with Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about physics. Like, you're basically covering the same questions and interests as I would have. So I don't need to agree with Rogan on everything, but I need to know that his thought process is honest and transparent, which I think he does a good job of giving us. You know what I mean? Like, and we've seen him change his mind. We've seen him admit when he's wrong. So those are probably the most important things that establish trust, is like, is this person willing to consume new information and potentially change their mind, you know, and admit that they got something wrong or made a mistake. Those are the only things that I care about. I can give a fuck about any of his actual political positions, because as long as I know that, I know that you're not ideological, you know, and stuck in that ideology. Everybody has ideology to some degree, but, you know, if you're stuck in that and only using your platform to advance an ideology, and I think he's skeptical of people like that too, because you know, like Candace Owens, and I think Candace Owens is actually a great guest, because it's like, you know, she's going to talk her shit and she's going to back it up. But, you know, Joe Rogan's going to ask those questions, and he'll catch, you know, he'll have like Milo Yiannopoulos, like these controversial figures. All he needs is like, over 3 hours is one question where he trips you up, and it's like, I'm that chink in, you know, the armor of I know everything about everything. So that's why we listen, because you know, you get people who are more ideological in a setting where they drop their guard, and you can catch them, you know. But even like somebody like Jordan Peterson, for example, I remember he was on, what's that? The Australian kid, Jim Jeffries. He was on the Jim Jeffries show.
Really?
Jeffries asked something. Yeah. This is like an amazing, because I'm like, dude, this. You say what you will about Jordan Peterson, but this sold me forever on him, because he's the only person I've ever seen acknowledge that he might be mistaken on one of these Comedy Central shows. The guy, I think they were discussing like the gay bakery like controversy. You know, the guy was like, I'm a Christian bakery and I don't want to make your gay cake, whatever. And that is a really interesting legal, you know, philosophical discussion. That I think kind of boils down to like, is this a product or is it a piece of art? You know what I mean? It's like, is it just a consumable, like, you know, and that makes all the difference, but like, define those terms. And so it is interesting, like, even though I'm super pro gay, I'm like, I can see the argument of being like, you're commissioning me to create a piece of art. Like, if you can convince me that way, then I'm like, well, unfortunately, then I guess he's right. Jim Jeffries pointed out something like to the opposite argument, and Jordan Peterson goes, I never thought about it that way. Yeah, you're right. Like, oh my God. He just admitted that he was wrong about something on a fucking show and just had no like pride or ego about it.
Well, I think that's the point, right? Is the authenticity in the idea that I can change my mind, right? And I'm not going to just toe this specific line of, well, if I identify with this category of human or this group of people, I'm going to blindly follow X, Y, and Z, right?
Yeah.
So I think what we're missing, and this is where guys like Rogan, they're really filling that void of like, yes, Rogan is a bald fighter, meathead comedian, but he's also very intelligent, and he also has an authentic side to him. He's he's not an average Joe, but he's your average Joe, right? Yeah. So like you said before, like he's asking the questions that we all ask. There have been so many times that I'm listening to Rogan and the guest will say something and I will be like, oh, I wonder. And then Joe Rogan asked that question, so like but the beauty is, and this should be super encouraging for you. This is encouraging for me is like Rogan didn't start out knowing what JRE was going to be. Right.
Yeah.
So like he continued to push the ball down the road and this like monster just like was created. And I think that's when you find like, okay, where is this serving? Who is this serving? And I'm going to continue to find that person and push towards that. And I think he just realized there was such a need for honest, long form conversation. And
right. And nobody could, as he always points out, like people, because it's like, there's also this narrative of like, and people have no attention span these days. Oh, it's like, I'm not even sure I buy that. Like, I get it, but at the same time, it's like, well, like, make better content. That's like when people go like, man, I consider myself a very good listener and somebody who, like, when I'm focused, I don't have to talk. Like, listening to these certain episodes of TFATK, like, I don't say anything because it's like they're fine or nobody's asking whatever. Like, even when I have the impetus to interject, like, it's something I'm always thinking about, like when to talk, when to not. When I catch myself being distracted or, with somebody and they're like, why are you looking at your phone? It's like, because you're not interesting. Like, I hate to say it, but like, you're fucking boring the shit out of me. Would you be more interesting? Like, is it okay to say that? Because I wouldn't tell this story because I go, oh my God, I'm self-conscious about how boring I'm being. So maybe you could be less boring. And I don't even know where I'm going with that, except to say like the attention thing. It's like, nobody has attention, man. Well, we do and we don't. That's another complex, discussion topic. But as he always points out, it's like there wasn't at that time people like, what we need 3-hour conversations with astrophysicists. But I latched onto the notion of like finding something as you go. And because that's like what I'm doing. As I said, I never would have started if it wasn't for Brendan being like, no, do it now.
Right.
Like just rip the Band-Aid off and start. And, you're not going to regret this 10 years from now because you're going to be so much better at this thing. And I think that's how most things were, whether I'm starting football or wrestling, it's like, you have to suck at first.
Yeah.
I remember taking improv classes and I would like, I'm so comfortable improvising now. It's like, it's a joke, there's different forms of improvising, like on a stage, like with other people, it's like that, but if you're like, oh, here's the rough idea and we're going to improvise a scene where you give me certain parameters, it's like, my heart rate won't even rise because I just, how to like let it happen. But I remember like going to a class in San Francisco and like being in the parking lot and being like, oh my, like I have to turn around, like go home because I'm like too stressed out to even go in this class. The thought of like how awkward it is to just be bad at improv, but at the same time, like at that time, I remember I was working on like writing scripts. Improvising and writing scripts are very similar because it's like, well, you're just like improvising in your head, this scene that's coming out of nothing, except you have the chance to edit it and think about it and go back and blah, blah, blah. But like with anything, you just get really good at like the closer you can bring these two things.
Right.
Like listening to Lil Browse, I've been in the studio now with him and I'm like, oh, like, because I also write lyrics and I also improvise. Like I used to freestyle rap in high school. That's another thing. It's like, you're terrible at it at first, but then like, at some point I was like, oh, I can go for 20 minutes, like at hitting a 6 out of 10, it's like now you're making groundbreaking rhymes, but like, if you just give me a beat that's like this fast, like I can rhyme forever with that beat.
Right.
The trick is when you listen to somebody who's an actual professional, like Little Brother, like he's merged those two things where he'll hear a beat and basically write a song in real time. That's like 90% of the quality that would be the final product. He's merged the analytical and the intuitive to such a degree. And I think I'm just relating that back to like you start and you don't know where it is, but like you're navigating like this feedback,
Right.
loop of like, oh, you want this? I'm good at this, whatever. Let's merge these things where my interests and the interests of others overlap. And I really admire people who are like mastermind architects. I'm really big into like MBTI theory. So somebody like, for example, Ben Shapiro is an INTJ. Thinking of other INTJs, like Bill Gates is an INTJ. Like, we kind of think of these people as like stereotypical, like dorks, but like really like abstract, intelligent, like planning dorks, you know? But and they're amazing what they do. And like my older brother's an INTJ, they tend to be very, very smart, almost to the point where it isolates them from other people.
Sure.
But like they're very good at thinking through every possibility.
Right.
And then like working, like once they've made the decision, like they're great. Like, and I work well with them because I could be like, oh, what about the, I provide a like yin to their yang. But what I provide is that sort of like that messiness. You know what I mean? Like that. Like I'm more open to the.
Well, you're bringing in that like creative element to a very. You're the chaos. You're the chaos to their order.
Exactly. Exactly. Like they're like, because I go like, we need a little splash of this. Like, you need to be open to the thing, because once they make that plan, those personality types tend to be very direct, which can help like in a business or like many different ways. Like that trait is amazing, because like you're gonna fucking make the plan and you're gonna think through all the possibilities and then like sprint to the end.
Right.
But with the perfect stride, right? It's like that's the other thing. It's like you're gonna do it the right way. But sometimes that can feel like, I've been in groups before, like sketch groups where it's like we're releasing videos and it's like you've fallen in love with the plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And by the time it changes it, because now you need to like pass this perfect script on to like a director and then the actors or whatever, like, and you see how, oh shit, like that can work out really well, but some of the magic is lost. Like when I think about the sketches I make with Isaiah, me and Isaiah, like, he's just like, I have a sketch idea. We talk about it 5 minutes before shooting it too. We come up with the lines after each take. We go, well, I know what okay, I'm gonna film you, you're gonna film me. What's the next line? That's how a lot of, and I'm like, these sketches, they're not all brilliant, but many of them have turned out better than the other process that I just described.
Right.
So what does that tell you? Like, these two things have to be merged. Right. You can't be totally, but like, again, if you get good enough at something, it can be done in real time, essentially.
100%.
If I get good enough at podcasting, it's like, all right, podcast now. Like, hey, what's up? Hey, just say, all right, we have, as long as I had access to the internet, I could make that happen,
Well, and I think even just like for the videos that you put out for ONS, like you will do these like one shot walking ads. And like, you could even read the comments, like people will be like, you did that in one take. That's super impressive, right? And so I think there's like this value, and obviously that helps you in your acting career, that helps you with your podcasting. And the other thing that I was going to add to that is this, you are a perfect example of like why it's so important to have mentorship, right? Like you have a mentor in Brian and Brennan, that these guys have been, they're just a little further down the road than you are. And they can point you like, don't do that, do this. And that's something that I did with ONS. Like I sought mentorship. I constantly am talking to these guys that are further down the road than I am. And just the value in that is so important. And so like actually building those relationships like you have, like that's a really, really crucial part. Not to say you can't do it on your own. You still have to put in the fucking work, right? You still have to do the podcast. You have to be the one that's entertaining. But these guys can at least point you in the direction and point you towards the mark of like, if you continue to do this, you're going to be successful. You just got to keep doing it. And you got to be bad at it for a little while. And that's how I felt. Like I started a clothing company and I had no fucking idea how to design clothes. But you just got to do it, right? Like you got to just, and for you, you had to sit at a table in front of a microphone and just be like, all right, I'm going to do a podcast now.
And it felt incredibly self-conscious. I was like, oh my God, like, as I'm doing the first episode, I'm like, man, I'm really bad at this. And then I watched, I'm like, oh, it's actually not as bad as I thought. But like in your head, you're like, I am the worst podcaster of all time, aren't I? But what you said earlier about mentorship, it's almost like a taboo word or something. Like, I feel like it's just not brought up enough. And one of the things that I want to start focusing on, because I think of kind of YouTube as like, or even Jordan Peterson or any of the guys that we mentioned, it's like, because mainstream media has adopted more of a narrative of like, masculine traits are toxic, right? And
right.
I don't even want to be like, oh, you can't even be a man these days. You can't even say hi to a woman. Like, obviously, I don't believe that. And like, I've never had a problem, like, accidentally hitting on a woman. And it's like, because I'm hot. So like, they don't care. But, but so, like, I don't, like, I hate, like, kind of like veering into those talking points of like, you can't even hug a woman and grab her butt anymore without getting a sexual. It's like, no, okay, we're all adults. Like, what's right and what's wrong. And just, maybe develop better social skills. That's the answer to a lot of guys' problems, right?
That's a wild idea.
Be better at talking to people, not just, like, oh, I can't even tell a woman she has nice tits anymore. Like, was that ever okay? Like, but like what gets lost in that conversation, and of course, like toxic masculinity exists, if you're beating women, if you're fucking getting in fights every day with anybody who looks at you wrong, like, sure, that's toxic masculinity, but like, being extroverted and dominant and assertive and decisive and unemotional, like, and stoic and, tough and resilient and strong. Like, there are lots of like masculine adjectives that I would say, the baby's been thrown out with the bathwater in this, at least in the mainstream public conversation, because I don't see enough of that stuff glamorized. And I almost do, like, when you look back at, like, I think it'll be interesting to like interpret, the Trump presidency, with some distance to it, because people are even now
it's too close. Yeah, it's too close.
And I consider myself pretty good at that. Like, I was, because I also like majored in politics, and it's like, if you have a point of reference and historical understanding of like different trends and whatnot, it's like, this is not a shocking thing. I expected Hillary Clinton to win, but like, I immediately go like, oh yes, okay, I understand why this happened. And, even if you don't understand his appeal at first, you start to talk to some people like, okay, I get it. And part of that was like, he embodied these traits of masculinity that a lot of people are like, yeah, dude, yeah, he'll be direct, he'll be strong, he's a guy's guy, like, he's not going to be a pushover, all like, and you see that there's that yearning, for a leader like that, or for those traits to sort of be, to be unapologetically manly. That I think is starting to turn a little bit, especially with like YouTube. There's more content for men that doesn't have to automatically be misogynistic or toxic. Right. It's like, no, there's a lot of the content I watch is just like, hey, I'm a dude and I'm going to teach you how to be a better dude, whether it's like how to dress or do your hair or how to work out or like how to be better at business or how to have these better habits that are just going to like how to be a better boyfriend, just a better person in general.
Right.
Like I want to be a part. I realized like, oh, I want to be a part of that. It's satisfying for me. And I love helping women too and interacting with women. But like, I realized like, oh, it's gratifying because like I can look back and go, I appreciate it. When I had those opportunities to have male role models and mentors, and I know it's going to be gratifying for me, whether or not I have kids, to like be a mentor in return, because I do have, my little areas of expertise. And that's what I'm growing into is like, I don't know everything, but I know some things. Right. And I understand now what other people consider the most valuable. And I'm happy to give that up because it feels good. And then I feel like, oh, I made even this tiniest little microscopic dent in the world, it is something.
It really is. And I mean, as a father, like being a dad is the scariest thing, because like your response, like, yeah, you take a mentor under your wing and it doesn't work out. You may have given him some bad advice, right? Yeah. But as a father, I'm just like, I'm wholeheartedly responsible for raising good humans. Yeah. And there's a lot of responsibility with that. My girls are 8 and 6, about to turn 7. And I definitely don't take that lightly, and so,
and that's why people will be like, oh, do you want to have kids? And I'm like, it's just such a serious decision to me. It is. Yeah. I'm like, maybe like I, it's just like, man, I just like, I haven't put enough thought into that and like planning things. I go, what kind of father are you trying to be?
Right. Well, you have, I mean, you've probably heard this a million times, but like, I will say it's the best decision I ever made. Like everything that I do, in life is for them, like for them and for my wife. Like those are my girls. And so that is such a driving force for me. But it is a very, I would not accidentally fall into it. I just like, I got the picture of your meme yesterday of just like rest in peace raw dogging. It just like popped in my head when you said that. But you know, it's I don't know. That's just like the journey of life, man. You just never know. Like, you never know where it's going to take you. You never know what relationships that you're going to have. And obviously, you've experienced a wild last couple of years, and I'm sure you never expect what life is going to. You never expect that you're going to hop in a car with Chappelle Lacey, and that he's going to introduce you to Brendan Schaub, and then you guys are going to start a podcast together, and now your life is on a completely different trajectory. All the people that I've met through that, it's just really cool. It's like, you know, in addition to Brendan and Brian, like now I'm friends with Chris D'Elia and Theo Vaughn. Like, these are people who I really look up to, and it's cool to like be around these guys and all the fighters I've met, and, you know, guys like Bradley Martin and Josh Thompson, and I got to hang out with Brian Ortega and freaking TJ Dillashaw and guys like that, where it's like, man, I really admire these guys, and like, you know, I can tell them that directly. Alex Volkanovski, like all the fighters that have been on, you know, Chito Vera, like, have Martin Vittori, like Marvin Vittori, he like all these guys. It's like, man, it's cool. I always get to talk to them for at least a few minutes. And it's like, it's a cool thing to be around and just like get to just see how they operate a little bit, because you're always like taking information, you know, and to see that like these guys, like, they're universally intelligent. So whatever you think about, like, oh, he's a dumb fighter, like, you know, maybe Marvin Vittori would be a good example. That could be like, you know, when Israel Adesanya is talking shit to him, it'll be like, oh, he's a meathead. It's like, talk to that guy for 10 minutes. Tell me he's not super intelligent. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Has a super interesting life story of like how he got into training, you know, when he's like 14 in a rural town in Italy, like MMA didn't exist in his town. So he's like going to like different gyms, like all over, like, you know, this one's half an hour away, and then you go over here for jiu-jitsu and this one for kickboxing. It's like, you know, that's a guy with a vision for himself, and, you know, speaking to me in his second language more articulately than most people, you know, can speak in their first language. So it's really cool to just be around that presence. And, you know, I it's not something I pictured, but I feel a lot of gratitude for that. And even be able to show up to a place every day where I'm like, you know, I've had the fortune of having jobs that I fucking hate every minute of. Right. Because then when you go to a place every day where you're like, oh, like, I'm actually enjoying walking through the doors of Thick Boy Studios, because I love everybody that I work with. And also, Brendan, like, you know, the studio itself is really cool and has like great artwork, and like, it's like a cool place. Right. But then also, like, I just also happen to like each individual person who works here a lot. And I like Brendan as, you know, the guy who's in charge of everything. And I like that he, you know, trusts me enough to like let my voice be heard and take my opinions or ideas seriously. So, you know, that's all fantastic and very, unpredictable from a couple of years ago. Yeah. So. Well, Mark, I mean, I'm so excited for you, man. I'm so happy for you that you're like going down this journey. And I think that just opportunity is just like, you have just a wide open horizon to do whatever you want to do. Thank you. So I'm excited, man. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the ONS podcast. And I love our partnership. And I don't just consider this a transactional relationship. I really consider you a friend. You're a great dude behind the scenes. And do you want to, for the ONS listeners that don't know who you are yet, do you want to tell them where they can find you and all that stuff? Yes. And I would say I reciprocate all those things. It's been great to, get to know you as well. And I feel it's always just great when, like, because most of my professional creative experiences come from acting, where it's like, it's much clearer, like, hey, you gave me the lines and I just have to do them, right? So it's another thing when it's like, I'm coming to you with ideas, and I'm like, you could hate it. So it's really cool. Like, I feel like if you understand why I think what I think is funny, is funny, like you understand my brain, and I feel like it's like, oh man, well, okay, we're on the same page. That means a lot to me that like you get where I'm coming from, because I know what it's like to feel misunderstood and dismissed. And it's like, oh man. So like, I try to take it personally, but it can be disappointing when it's like, oh man, I thought like you would understand this and you don't get it. And like, I got to move on from like thinking of you that way. So it's something I'll always appreciate, to have somebody who like
believes, understands, and supports,
Right.
And if you don't know, how does anyone listening not know who I am at this point? I'm so famous. Find me, mainly I use Instagram, but everything I do is Hello Mark Harley, from my Venmo and my Cash App to my IG, Twitter, all that. TikTok. I'm just starting to use TikTok more. So it's the future,
Yeah.
And my podcast is a weekly podcast that's dropping every Thursday afternoon called Haters Will Say. And again, fitness adjacent. Fitness is the launching point, but we could talk about psychology, psychedelics, politics, self-improvement, everything under the sun that I think is anchored by make yourself better with what you have control over, which is moving your body and, branching out from there. Every Thursday on the Thick Boy YouTube channel, you'll get a new episode, whether it's a solo podcast or the interviews that I'm just starting to do now after, 38 solo episodes.
Hell yeah, brother. Well, I appreciate it, man. You have a great one, and thanks for being on.
All right. Thanks, bro.
See ya.